Here's the full story of how my business Grassfields was stolen from me. In January of this year, my world came crashing down when my business Grassfields was stolen from me by the business partner/investors abroad. It has been difficult sitting behind while they saw my name by changing the narrative without providing any proof. But it was such a shocking and life-changing event, I had to take some time. Now I'm ready to tell my side of the story and provide receipts. Between 2019 to 2022, Grassfields experienced massive growth, and as a result, we couldn't meet up with production. So we decided to take on long-term loans to be able to increase our production capacity. All of these loans were granted because they were able to see our sales revenue and also our sales forecast. Scaling is scary, and like most business trying to scale, we hit some few tumbling blocks. The main one being that our new manufacturers produced some defective products we couldn't sell. Around that same time, I got a call from my sister saying that she had few days left to live. We could have easily survived defective products, but to add to that a dying sister was too much for me to bear. I shut down the business, dropped everything, and traveled to be by my twin sister's side. I don't know if any of you have ever been at the edge of losing a close sibling, but it's something I find very difficult to be able to explain. In 1996, we lost our dad, and in 1998, we lost our elder brother. Having to lose my twin sister was a pain I would never be able to describe. I spent almost 2 months with her, and within that time, we fought tooth and nail to keep her alive. Your prayers and your support meant the world to us, and during that time, a doctor saw our post, came out of retirement, and performed the operations that helped save my sister's life. We'll forever be grateful to that doctor, and Michelle's children, I'm sure, will never forget because they were able to get their mommy back. I returned to the business, and it was a mess. We had lost revenue for almost 2 months, totaling about £700,000. I was still confident that we could get everything back on track. All we needed was working capital. So I went to our creditors and asked them to give us more loans. While they were happy to give us more loans, we needed to provide bank statements for a few months, which we didn't have because we had been closed for that period of time. But they said they are going to freeze the current loans that we have until we're back on our feet. And that is where things started going downhill. It was a very scary time, but I was very confident we could make it work. All I needed was working capital of around £100,000 and to work extremely hard, which I had done all through the year to get things back on track. Unfortunately, it didn't help that my sister was still sick, and because of the loan obligation, my uncle and I agreed that he should step down so that he doesn't get stained by it. I went from 3 strong people managing the brand to just myself, while also supporting my sick sister and her family. It was the hardest time of my life, but I was very much confident that we could pull this together. All we needed was good marketing to be able to drive in the revenue, which is what I'm very good at. I informed the accountant so that he is aware. He advised me that while I believe I could make it work, he said it would be prudent for me to explore other options of raising capital, meeting with a liquidator, just so at least I know the options that are available to me. I met with a few loan providers and a liquidator who was very relaxed about the situation. He advised me to declare bankruptcy, which is what most millionaires and billionaires in my situation do. That way, I will be able to walk away from the liabilities. It made no sense to me because at the time, we had almost 1 million followers on Instagram and almost 300,000 subscribers to our mailing list. When it was clear to him that I had no intention of declaring bankruptcy, there is when he suggested an investor. I was introduced to Ravi. Ravi was very keen on joining the business after he had access to our sales data. On one occasion, he couldn't believe we had made over £200,000 in sales over a weekend. And at that point, he literally started selling himself to me. Ravi was to bring a team of experts who had over 30 years of producing in the UK and in India. And such setup was to be made in Africa, which is what we have always wanted. It meant that not only were we able to solve our production issues, but we were able to invest back into the continent where we already had machinery and equipment that we bought during the COVID time. While I was very good at driving massive revenue to Grassfields through my good marketing, our profit margins were very low because we were producing in Africa as opposed to producing in a low-cost country like China. Him be able to bring such a team meant that the business will completely change and we'll be able to employ more people in Africa, improve our profit margin, and finally reaping the reward of the hard work we have been putting in the last 8 years. On the other hand, what I like is that unlike a loan provider or other investor, Ravi was extremely keen on being part of the business. That meant that while I was very good at marketing and bringing revenue, he will now be able to fill in the shoes of my uncle, who was in charge of the operations. He was also able to bring in contacts, being a lawyer himself, and also access to cash, which will allow us to grow the business. I was to retain 50% of the company shares. The liquidator gets 20% and Ravi gets 30%. But in hindsight, the liquidator taking part in this deal should have been the biggest red flag. Not long after, I was informed that he was no longer going to be a shareholder and Ravi now was getting 50%. This was a very well calculated move by them, and you will soon understand why. And the worst part about that is that the man I was dealing with had multiple shady news coverage like a hit and run, and the fact that he did not want to pay some employees from a company he had previously acquired, and he had to take an MP for him to be able to pay them. I only came across this news coverage much later. Considering that this was the only ones that made it to the news, I wonder what else he has done. Giving 50% of gas fees was definitely a lot, but I knew that we needed help with growing the business and also with production in Africa. And him being an experienced lawyer and entrepreneur with access to people that can support. There were also other immediate things that we needed, which is refunding customers, bringing the working capital that we needed to continue operating, and also setting up a sophistication operation systems that will allow us to produce at scales in Africa, which is one of the main issues that we're facing at Glassfields. But it turned out he never had the intention of doing any of that. All he was doing is mirroring things so that I would choose him among the other loan providers and investors that I had explored. Long story short, he convinced me that the company needed to be restructured because of the loans. Most people think that he came into the business when we were in liquidation, but he was already in the business prior to us going into liquidation. But he was already a business partner months before and suggested administration as a loan restructure. He brought in a few people to help with this while I concentrated on marketing to drive in revenue. Having researched these guys recently, these were heavyweight companies like Quantum Man and the others. Why were they so necessary if it was a simple company restructure? I was naive, stupid, and trusting of many things. I genuinely stood no chance against him. Even if we were exposed, he would have still gotten away with stealing my company. It's just that it would have taken him more longer. New company was set up, new bank account was set up, and he managed all of these. I didn't have access to any of them while he was holding my company shares. He claimed that holding the company shares will be more favorable when we go to meet the creditors for the loan restructuring. He kept telling me to be patient and wait, like adding me to the company's document and also announcing that the company was now partly owned. He was extremely hard to work with because Glassfield was not his main business. He handled it when and then. So he would ask me to inquire costs like hiring photographer models, and then we would spend the next few weeks chasing him to make those payments. I believe he had no intention of ever refunding these people or making these payments. I still have some of my few Glassfields friends who are the models and photographers who haven't been paid till this date. He wanted me to keep incurring debts, slowly take me out of the business, and then kick me out. That was the only reason I was there. Why is the only reason he wanted me to hire people in my name? Why they continue calling me out on social media? Even basic things like the email marketing software, he couldn't pay. We lost so much money as a result from one of the campaigns that we had a few months ago. Basically, we were doing better before we even had him in the business. And every single day, we were losing money. He had zero knowledge of social media marketing or marketing in general, but yet he wouldn't let us run things. By the end of the year, I had had enough. I could tell he didn't want to invest in production in Africa, and there was no reason why everything was so disorganized. The loan restructuring that we had planned to do was still not happening. People were still being owed. I had not been paid salary for months, and there was so much more chaos. So on the 1st of January, I told him that there's no way I could continue working like that. And he said he's going to sort out things. So he called me to his office and told me to sign a document quickly because we needed to meet a quick deadline. I didn't realize at the time I was signing a document that was handing over to him the only part of the business he had not legally been able to take away from me. In response to my complaint about things not being done properly, at this point I was HR, admin, marketer, and so much more. And me spending my whole days calling him and chasing him for payments. He brought in a guy saying that he's now going to be the general manager. Actually, the guy was only there to keep an eye on me to collect details so that they can use it later on to kick me out. Then said that the IT person needed to put in extra security on the company's computer. I didn't realize that this person was actually logging me out of all social media accounts and my company emails while logging into my personal emails. The next day, I was organizing a shoot with my team when I realized that no one was responding to me. In panic, I started calling everyone, but there was still no reply. Turns out, he told them not to speak to me again. 2 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, he called me to let me know that we have been let go. The reason being that we downloaded customers' information. But this was a normal procedure that my sister and I have been using for years to refund customers. So it didn't make any sense to me. He then gave me an ultimatum that if I accept his new conditions of only taking 5% of the company as opposed to 50%, I would then be able to join back the company. I refused. He then realized that I still had access to the TikTok account and he asked me to give him the details. When I refused, he then sent a letter via his lawyer threatening legal actions against me and the police. When I read the document sent by the lawyer, it stated that he was the legal owner of our social media accounts and our email list. It turns out it was the last document that I signed around the 1st of January. But the document that was handed to me by the lawyer was dated October 2022, which means that he had backdated the document. After stealing my £20 million business, he continued running graphics like I was still part of the company, refusing to tell the businesses that it was no longer a black business. I had to speak up. I know I looked very crazy in that video, and I wish I was more composed with my words when I made that video. But with everything going on with my sister, losing the only source of income that I had, also the only source of income that was used to support over 20 families back in Africa and the orphanage that we ran in Cameroon with my mom, I couldn't imagine that I had lost it all. He may have felt that he only cheated on me, but he cheated on over 20 families that were supported directly through grassroots, and an orphanage of children that we have always supported since we started this business. My stupidity pretty much handed over a business that was for black people, made in Africa, to someone who doesn't care about his people and the community. He had no intention of moving a production into Africa, and certainly not investing into this community. All he cares about is growing the business and then selling it in parts for a quick cash. I wanted to create a business that supports black people and provide jobs in Africa. Instead, I lost it all to someone who refuses to support the same community that he wants to profit from. And for that, I can never forgive myself. Everyone asked me why did I not get a lawyer throughout this process? And as silly as it might sound, I didn't think that I would need a lawyer every time I had a meeting with my business partner. He was supposed to be the person that becomes our lawyer and legally protects us. I didn't think that he would use his legal knowledge with his administrator friend to then take me out of the same business I brought them in. It now makes sense why the liquidator did not take any share in the company, because it would have been too obvious on paper. But I believe from the beginning, they hatched a plan to take me out of the business so that they could keep it all to themselves. And that stupidity made it easy for them. I have never run the operations of the business before, Never needed a lawyer in my life or even work for another company. All this time, I was protected by my uncle, especially as he was the one handling all of this. And for my first time doing it solo, I failed miserably. And I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for this. As a business partner, he convinced me to restructure the business because of the loans the company had. Then proceeded to use excuses to do certain things and then took the business away from me. He pretended to share the same goals of growing grass fields in a way that would allow production to continue in Africa, employ Africans, and invest in the production industry. In reality, it was a quick money grab, and there are suggestions that lead me to believe that his aim is not to produce in Africa, but in China, where it will be cheaper, and later on grow the business to sell it in parts. This is not the vision I had for Grassfields. The vision of Grassfields was always to invest in Africa because it's for the people, by the people. I feel so embarrassed that he did not just cheat me once, but he cheated me multiple times before I even knew what was happening. I had never had a partner before that wasn't a family member, and I was very naive in understanding what humans are capable of and how selfish they can be. I still strongly believe that anyone could have fallen for so many of his tricks, but I'm just so ashamed and embarrassed that I made it so easy for him, and that I did not just fall for one, but for all of them. My naivety in trusting him like I trusted my uncle is probably the biggest mistake I ever made. I can't believe the girl I once was didn't know that humans could be so selfish and greedy. He was in charge of legal, banking, and accounting, which is what my uncle was in charge of, and he used every single one of them to screw me over. Looking back, my desperation to focus only on marketing, which is where I am very good at, so others who I deemed more qualified could run this big beast of a business, was also going to be the end for me. A few years earlier, when we started Grassfields in Yaoundé, Cameroon, if you would have told me that Grassfields would become this big of a business, I would have never believed you. The house we lived in had a leaking roof, let alone access to Wi-Fi. What most of you don't realize is that the early post of Grassfields was done from a cyber cafe that my sister and I traveled from one area to another to be able to post, especially when we had electricity shortages. So no, I didn't think that I would ever run a business bringing in millions in sales and employing over 2,000 people in Africa. As of the time I met Ravi, I had been in the UK for the last 6 years and I had barely left my home while I was working tirelessly to build this business. I kept my responsibilities of feeding and housing my siblings, mom, cousins, and the orphanage that we have in Cameroon. And of course, the tailors who worked for us. And I did it so well that I lost myself into it and I didn't think about broadening my horizon. Otherwise, I would have definitely spotted so many tell signs from Ravi that he was nothing he portrayed himself to be. Because with the little I've learned over the last 4 months, it should have been extremely obvious from the very get-go. Just like my first video, I don't expect you guys to understand the whole situation because this video is mainly a summary of everything that happened. But ask yourself one question. How did he manage to acquire a company that made over 20 million in sales for just £40,000? He did this by putting it into liquidation, set up a new company with his friends, and then using that company to bid for it at the lowest price possible. While convincing me to be focusing on marketing and lying to me that it was just a simple restructure. We were not trapped for cash like he said. And even if we were, we could have easily sold the asset of the company and we would have gotten at least 100 times more than what he got it for. The loan we took were not squandered cash. They were invested in production in Africa through machineries and equipment. If we sold that, we would have gotten a lot of cash. Selling a very active social media page of almost 1 million followers is also a lot of money. Mr. Beast was offered $1 billion for 143 million followers on his YouTube account. Obviously, we are not close to that number, but you can still imagine how much we will have been able to sell our own page for thousands of hundreds of pounds. The mailing list of almost 300,000 customers will have also fetched in a lot of money. Each of those emails are worth at least £5. I have so many other options, including loan providers and more creditors. Why would I purposely sell my company for £40,000? He was so evil, he did not just take the business away from me, but he transferred all the assets in his name and then leave the old debts of the company. Now ask yourself that question. If he was there to rescue Grassfields, why didn't he take on the loans as well? This happens a lot in the black industry, especially the creative industry, like musicians and footballers, because they are not very business savvy. I can only hope that my story inspires others to do better protecting themselves. Over the last few months, I've learned so much by educating myself. I may not be able to empower again Africans and black people through Grassfields, and I'm definitely not your go-to person when it comes to running a business. But one thing I'm sure I'm very good at is social media marketing and driving sales. I was able to bring in over £20 million in sales through Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram while starting this business in Cameroon with just £50 and his phone. Using Cyber Cafe to post and generating over 80% of our sales through social media. I'll be sharing all the strategies I use on Grassfields and other massive brands are consulted for on my page at e-commerce with Crystal. So if you have any e-commerce questions or you don't know how to use social media to drive sales, please send me a DM. I'll be more than happy to answer. I just hope that me falling at Grassfields will be the catalyst to creating more black businesses like Grassfields. And if I can achieve that, maybe I'll be able to forgive myself. I've tried to film this video so many times, but it was very difficult. So I really hope I don't have to talk again about this while I rediscover myself. But if you want the full story, I've written a free ebook of my time at Grassfields. You can download that and have the full tea. This is just a quick summary video to answer the many. Download 10 times I got screwed.
Imagine losing the only business that you worked so hard to establish, to create, right? A business that is helping the needy, orphans, business that is supporting unemployed African women. This business gave so many African women the opportunity to make money, right? This sister, they have an orphanage. Guys, when I talk about this, I feel so emotional. I just literally feel like crying, right? They have an orphanage that the money from this exact business was supporting these kids. I don't even know what kind of cruel person would want to steal something that is so pure, something that is helping so many people who are in need. Like, I don't get it. Guys, so the thing is, please don't do business with Indians. If you are a black person or African, please don't do business with Indians, because I don't want to sound racist. I know some people will be like, that is racist. No, it isn't. A lot of Indians are actually racist. They will only respect their fellow Indian businesses. They will not care about African businesses. As a Ugandan here in Uganda, I see that happening a lot. Majority of the Indian business, if not all of the Indian businesses in Uganda, their employees are Indians. They go and get their relatives all the way from India to come and work in their businesses here. So please don't accept to partner with Indians. Please, 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 and please, I beg of you. Please. So for this sister, the only issue she had was not having a lawyer. For such a big business, my sister never had a lawyer and she lost her business, because a lawyer will always help you. They will always read through what you're signing. They will always make sure the business is whatever you're signing is benefiting the business, right? Which is something she did not have. I don't want to go into details because she explained everything, how she was going through a lot with her twin sister. She has a twin sister, by the way. So I don't want to go through a lot, but I don't want to go through to explain so many stuff that she already talked about. Yeah, so guys, this is extremely sad. People are encouraging her to start again because she is the face. Everybody knows Greenfield because of her. So if she's to start again, and people will follow her, people will purchase from her, but it seems like she does not have the energy and the courage at the moment, which is something I understand. We should just give her time to just prepare herself mentally to heal from all this mess, and then she will come back better, and we will always be here to support her. Yes, so oh my goodness, guys, I don't even know what to say, but may God heal her, may she heal. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching. Please go follow her on TikTok. Give her the encouraging words. Yes, follow her because her original TikTok page where I used to get